It's the Church Solutions Podcast, and it's episode number 392. My name is Phil Thompson.
And I'm Steve Lacy.
Steve Lacy, we have got a couple things going on here. We've got a webinar coming up in August, which is right around the corner. We're recording this in late July here, but we've got another fun webinar coming up. Before we get into our topic today with our guest, and by the way, we have you get more money, you get more bang for your buck with these podcasts that we do. I mean, number one, they're free anyhow, but this time we have not one special guest, but two special guests. And one of them is really tall, but we'll get into that later. But Steve, before we introduce our guest, tell us about the webinar coming up.
So we're having a webinar coming up on, what is the date of this? August 15th. And it is on empowering pastors with two new AI cutting edge technology tools. So we have been actively exploring, researching, and implementing some AI tools that are appropriate for the church. And we're going to go over a couple of those that have just become available. So that's what this is going to be about.
Do you think we could get a longer title for this?
Yeah, sure.
All right. All right. But all kidding aside here, empowering pastors with two new AI cutting edge technology tools. This will be a lot of fun. If you're interested in AI and you're interested in some of this stuff, we'll bring this webinar to you. They're only usually about a half hour long. We have a little Q&A. So where can people go to sign up for the webinar, Steve?
You can go to webinar.streamingchurch.tv.
Webinar.streamingchurch.tv. All right, I got that right. And where can people see our past webinars?
They can go to streamingchurch.tv/webinar.
Okay. But you can always go to our resources too when you go to streamingchurch.tv and check out other things that we have, like our blog and our podcast and all that. All right. So enough of the business stuff. Let's get things going here. So today we thought that we would talk, among other things, about what churches should be looking for when it comes to their AV needs. And we've got two guests, as I alluded to earlier. I will read their bios. First one, I'll read Joel's bio. Joel Cruz is with us. He's the director of marketing. He's been with a company that we're going to talk about today. Both these guys are with BZBGear. Is that the way to pronounce it? All right, BZBGear. Joel's been with them since 2016. He enjoys gaming. Steve, your son does gaming, right? And he enjoys film, also reading. He likes reading scary stuff. And being on his podcast is probably going to scare a lot of what he comes up against us. He's also from San Jose, California, and he's got two kids, two sons, 10 and 8. And then our next guest, who's with us today, Matthew Allison. He is the Western U.S. and International Business Developer for BZBGear. He lives actually in Sacramento, the Sacramento Valley, and he's got two giant children. We've read a lot of bios on this thing, right? And I've never had anybody include this in their bio before. Two giant children. One is 6'4". He's a 16-year-old, and the other one is 5'10", and she's only 12. So, oh boy. But anyhow, Matthew's been in tech now for over 20 years, and AV is a specialty. And he says he's a cat person here. So we almost didn't have him on the podcast because he said he was a cat person, but and he's also an ordained minister. All right. So welcome, gentlemen, to the Church Solutions Podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Thank you for having us, Phil. I'm doing well. We're in Sacramento. Things haven't quite started heating up yet today, but we do expect it to get somewhere close to 100 in the next few hours.
Yeah, well, we're used to that here in Tucson. We're breaking records, and Phoenix, our neighbors up north, are doing that. How about you, Joel? Are you keeping cool?
I am. I'm here in San Jose, so it's the Bay Area. It's about 2 hours away from Sacramento. I do drive up once a week, so I know the heat that Matthew is referring to, and I do not enjoy it all that much. Being over here, I'm a little baby compared to like how Matthew, he can hang with the heat over there. But we're good here. I just dropped off the kids at a summer soccer camp, so keeping them busy during the summer. So I'm have the house all nice and quiet right now.
Okay. Well, that's always nice. All right. Steve Lacy, why don't you kick things off here? You like to interview people. Go ahead and see what you can throw at these guys here.
Let's start with the basics. What is BZBGear and where did it come from, and what's its niche, and how does that relate to the church? How can the church benefit? So give us a little history and what you guys do.
Yeah, definitely. So BZBGear, we're fairly new, established in 2019. We are headquartered in Sacramento, California. We are a global manufacturer of professional AV, audiovisual, and broadcasting solutions. We actually started back in 2005 as distributors. So, we've worked with hundreds of brands. We know the ins and outs. We know what everybody needs in the industry, working closely with dealers, installers, end users, integrators. So it kind of prepared us for this transition to being manufacturers. So our goal is simple, is just to provide top grade pro AV and broadcasting while giving precedence to design, user experience, and product support. That's very huge for us. We pride ourselves in having that great tech support, customer support 7 days a week. And good warranties. Matthew, he can attest to the people he's worked with. We have a lot of people call in also for on the tech lines, and they praise us. So we value that, and we value what people think. So we're just getting. We have been getting a lot of traction. We've been going to trade shows. Capture Summit is coming up soon. That'll be our first time there, actually. I'm sure we can discuss that later in this episode. But fairly new, but we are getting recognized, and it feels good to be to be at this point right now.
Great. So you mentioned Capture Summit. So that is a week and a half away, 2 weeks away. It'll be going on, in August 7th through the 9th. So we will be there as streamingchurch.tv. We have a booth, in BZBGear will have a booth as well, right? So maybe this is a good time to let our listeners know, if you guys want to go to the conference, you can go to the conference on streamingchurch.tv. I think we have a couple of tickets still left. So conference is, as I mentioned, August 7th through the 9th in Dallas, Texas, kind of North Dallas area. And so if you're near there or you want to be there, let us know, and we can hook you up with a free ticket to the conference. So you guys haven't done Capture Conference. We haven't done conferences in a long time either, but I guess you normally do conferences. Is that true?
We do lots of different shows over the course of the year. A lot of the really big ones like NAB and Infocom, and then we look for some of the more smaller regional, more specific type shows like the Capture Summit, and some of the other small shows that we do, just because not everybody can make it out to the big shows. Entry to those sometimes can get very expensive, and it's a week-long trip, and it's halfway across the country. So some of the smaller local regional shows are really good to get into, because it gives us an opportunity to get close to people that are, seeing us online, watching our YouTube videos, and just wondering who we are.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's talk. We actually had a booth at NAB a long time ago, and that is a gigantic show. And so all your competitors will be there as well, right?
Correct.
We serve, Streaming Church, we only serve the church. So if someone was going to come up and say, hey, I'm from a church, I'm looking at gear, why should I be talking with you at your booth for BZB?
Well, the pandemic happened, and it threw a lot of churches into a situation they weren't really ready for, not just with what was happening, but how to deal with it, how to continue to reach their parishioners, and get the word out. And so we realized very early on that churches, really above a lot of other clients, needed assistance. There's a lot of churches that don't have full AV departments. Most of the people that they have are volunteers. And a lot of times, if you're not working with the right partners, they don't understand what it is to have that type of need. There's a lot of hand holding and just making sure that the technology isn't just understood, but implemented properly. We've had churches that have called us that have worked with other companies that, were unfortunately oversold. A lot of product that they didn't need, that didn't meet what their requirements are. And that's really where it starts, is a church understanding what they need and then finding the right partner to help meet that need.
Yeah. The church is very unique in this sense, because most of the customers, they know their AV stuff and they've done their research and they're comparing the ins and outs and know all the specs. And if I'm buying it for a TV studio station or something like that, I live that every day. But the church they may have one guy that knows a little bit that's on staff, but everybody that's going to be pushing buttons every week are people that are kind of off the street that don't. So it makes a really unique situation for churches. So I guess you guys had mentioned, training and support is a big part of that. Is there training, or what do you recommend for a church if I bought some equipment and I've got a new team of people coming in and I want to, make the most out of my equipment? What do you recommend for them?
Well, we definitely, we have a very extensive YouTube channel, BZB TV, and there's a lot of great information on there that I know a lot of my church clients have utilized to help understand the technology, setting it up, using it, configuring it, because you're absolutely right. A lot of times it's a volunteer that steps in, and it may not be the same volunteer every week. And so simplifying the process, or having, instructions that are easy to follow and easy to use, and of course, products that are easy to use, goes a long way towards helping churches reach their audience.
And if I'm a pastor or a tech guy, and we do, we're streamingchurch.tv, that's really what we do. That's our company. And we do this podcast for fun, but not just for fun, but we do want to provide resources for churches. So I'm listening. Say I'm a pastor or a tech person, and I'm listening to this, and I'm going, we probably do need to upgrade our equipment. What would you or Joel, how would you guys answer that? And what would be a good stepping stone for them to upgrade their equipment? And I know you don't know anything about it, right? You don't know what they're using or anything, but let's just imagine you have an idea. What would you recommend for them to get to kind of the next level?
Well, I think for a lot of churches, really one of the first phone calls needs to be to an integrator, someone that can come in and install these things, because it may seem simple to take a video camera and a microphone, plug them together, put it in front of your pastor, and you're ready to rock. And unfortunately, it is a little bit more complicated than that. There's a lot of things that come into play as far as lighting, as far as acoustics, distances, connectivity. And if you're really making an upgrade nowadays to like NDI or some of the newer technologies, then it also requires looking at the network at the church. And that's something that a lot of churches haven't really considered, especially when you're talking about the medium to smaller churches. The network isn't just something that they think about, and that's understandable. Most of us don't consider what's going on in the network infrastructure of whether we're at work, at church, or anywhere. And so that's a big caveat that comes into play. And so I think really working with a quality integrator that can come in and assess and listen to what the church wants to do. It's unfortunately not always, you don't always get the integrators that want to go with what the church needs. It's what the integrator wants to sell or what they want to give in. And that's why we build such great partnerships with people, because I've talked to a ton of churches that had never even thought about calling an integrator. They just figured we'll get some equipment in, we'll connect it up. And so it's always nice to be able to connect them with a qualified integrator that can help answer their questions, be there to support them, but then also know once that integrator is gone, that BZBGear is also here to support them and make sure things are working and running well.
Yeah. Customer support is such a big thing.
Yeah. So it is a trend today. You talk about implementing NDI, and there's IP cameras and all these. The network has, was kind of a utility in the building. I bought a router, I got my cable people, and I wired all the rooms maybe, and then that was 15 years ago, and now I'm upgrading equipment. What what are the considerations there? What are the common problems that people have when moving to some of this later gear, and as it relates to their infrastructure, power requirements, network requirements, all that stuff?
You know, I mean, we all want the latest and greatest, and it's a tough situation when, you know, churches have much tighter budgets than most clients do. And so it's imperative when working with the church to look at what, you know, really first, and as tacky as it sounds, is what's your budget? Because it's really going to make a huge difference as to what needs can be met. You know, if you think of the service triangle of cost, service, and value, you know, you've got to pick two of those. And a lot of times with churches, you know, it's tough to pick which two are going to be most important. And so, you know, starting with what their budget is and what equipment they have, because it's not always necessary to start from scratch. You know, if you've got legacy AV equipment, it doesn't necessarily need to go away just because you're upgrading your cameras to NDI or Dante or anything like that. You know, a lot of that can still be used and still be implemented, even if you're upgrading or have to upgrade your network. So it's you know, it's having partners that understand those things and can look at it objectively and not financially.
It reminds me, I worked with a engineer, and I'm sure he got it somewhere else, but he was talking about, you can have it good, you can have it quick, and you can have it, or no, good, fast,
or cheap.
Oh, cheap. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Man, I blew that one. Yes. Pick any two.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so I thought that was very clever, although I forgot the third one there. So anyway, yeah. So good, fast, or cheap.
Hey, you mentioned NDI, and we've had people on here talking about NDI, but it's been a while. In layman's terms, one of you guys tell us what NDI is and why should I care?
Joel, you want to take that, or you want me to jump in?
And well, I'll begin, but you probably know a little more how it works, so just correct me if I get anything wrong. But NDI, it's basically it's kind of like AV over IP. So through a network, you know, category cable, you could get power, audio, video, and control all through one cable, and it's kind of like a interoperability system where, you know, because now that you have NDI cameras, and in the whole ecosystem, it can work with other NDI, you know, powered and be compatible with the powered units. So now, you know, everything can all, you know, easily work together. It's easy, you know, when you want to make mobile productions. We have this set up at a lot of our trade shows for people to demo, just to show. We hook it up with a new tech TriCaster Mini. So it really, you could produce a high quality professional looking broadcast from anywhere in the world. You know, as long as you have the TriCaster Mini, and then you have the talent could be, you know, across the world, or, you know, across the city, wherever, and then you can all still produce something really, really nice.
The weakness, I'm cutting you off there, but I'll jump in there. The weakness to this would be if your network's not very good. And we're talking your internet network in your church, right?
Correct.
So if it's weak, that's the weak link. I mean, that's going to be a problem, right?
Correct. So NDI by definition is network device interface. And it essentially just means taking equipment, in this case, AV equipment, and putting it onto your network. It allows for much easier discoverability of the products that you have attached that are NDI, and accessing those feeds and functions over your network. So yes, absolutely. If you're taking a 4K camera and pushing that NDI 4K feed over your network, it's going to have a massive, massive hit to your network. You know, think of networks as a highway. You've got 2 roads, or 2 lanes, you've got 4 lanes, you've got 6 lanes. And the more cars you put on there, the more data through your video, the more congestion you're going to have. That causes more accidents, dropped frames, and things like that. So it's definitely a necessary component of making a major upgrade to something like NDI technology.
How do I know if I've got a 6 lane or a 2 lane? How do I know that?
You ask your network guy. If you don't have a network guy, you got to bring one in, you know, and sometimes, because it is having an IT conversation with someone that doesn't understand or really know IT can be very, very difficult, because There's a lot of intricacies to it and acronyms and things that me as a 20-year tech guy, I'll rattle off because I get it, but I have to recognize that my clients don't always get that. And so you kind of have to pull back a little bit and, start things simple and use the analogy of having a highway. And then, okay, well, let's figure out how big your highway is. Are you on a 1 gig network? Are you on a 10 gig network? And then looking at the upgrade that you want to do and saying, okay, well, if you want to make this many cars go across your road, we need to add a couple of lanes. How do we do that? And that's just part of the process that we do here at BZBGear, and a lot of people do it out there. But it's an important part of the process, helping the church get into the 21st century. I guess we're still there.
Hasn't the landscape changed over, I guess this is probably the past few decades, because before my considerations were, before NDI and before the network-based stuff, was, I've got an HDI connection. That's going to be good for 30 feet or something, or 20 feet. And then it's going to fall apart and I need a repeater, or I need to convert it from something else. And so I was always having to look at what's my connection type and how far is that camera from the encoder and all that stuff. I'm assuming with NDI, a lot of those challenges that I dealt with 10 years ago, 15 years ago, go away.
You are correct, Steve. But what happens is you add other challenges. So okay. I think the challenges that we used to face with those decisions were easier than the challenges we face now, even though the technology has made some things simpler. There's a lot more calculation and intricate measurements that need to happen to make sure that things are going to work properly. There's nothing worse than doing a live stream and having your frame freeze, or things drop off, or it just stops completely because your network fried. So it is, some things have gone the way of the dodo, but a whole bunch more much more technical things have come in its place.
Okay. So things like, if I've got Cat 5 routed through the building, do I need to move to Cat 6, or I don't know what they're at now, but, or is it just a matter of looking at switches and routers and things like that?
It's all of that.
Okay.
It is absolutely all of that. It boils down to what type of resolution you want to have on your shows, whether you're live producing, post-producing, both. Yes, sometimes category cable that's, level 5 works. Sometimes you've got to upgrade to 6 or 6E, in some cases even 7. And it just, again, it really depends on what you want to do and having that roadmap to make it happen. And that's why the convergence of AV and IT has been so difficult for churches, because it in a lot of cases, it could double what your budget needs to be to make happen what you want to happen.
Yeah. And a lot of people relate to, I do my internet speed test and it gives me this, and so I'm okay. But what you're talking about is connect point to point within the building. How do I test that? How do I know whether I need to upgrade?
There's lots of different ways to test it. There's network tests that you can run within your system. And again, the difficult part is to talk to a church volunteer who doesn't have a background in IT about these things, because it can be very confusing. And when you ask somebody who doesn't have the experience to jump into a server and start typing commands or looking at things, you can misclick and really, really break things. And so it's tough to guide someone who doesn't have the experience with the way that we have to guide people at times. And that's why in a lot of cases, the best bet is to reach out to a network engineer, someone that hopefully, in most churches, somebody in that flock has got the experience. And those are the volunteers that really you have to reach out to and ask for help from within your congregations. There's almost always somebody that's got that background that can be that volunteer that we can then talk to and work with to make sure that things are either going to work as they are, or what may need to be upgraded to reach the level that they want to reach.
Okay. So as people come to you and say, hey, I'm really enamored with this new fancy thing, you would ask the questions about whether that's going to work in their environment or not, and then help them, if they really want it to, if it's not going to work in their environment, to improve their environment, their network environment, to to accommodate it, or choose something else. I assume there's other options of, I can't go with this one. I'm going to go with this, this other thing.
And I think enamored is the perfect word for that, Steve, because we all, technology is moving so quickly right now that we do all tend to get enamored with it and what it can do and the promises that we're told about it. But again, there's a lot that comes into the backside of those promises, the backside of what those things can do and how to actually make it do that. In the utopia, everything just works when you plug it in, but that's not the reality of the world we live in. So
one of the things we run into a lot is pointing fingers where the church will have streaming issues and they point the fingers at us, and then we look at things like their infrastructure and say, I think the problem is on your end because how do you avoid that with, or how do you work with because it's going to be, it's the AV equipment guy's fault or it's the network guy's fault. Do you run into those battles?
Oh, absolutely. Not as often as we used to, because you kind of tend to figure out how to approach these things from the beginning to avoid some of those pitfalls. But it's absolutely something that still happens often. And it's okay. It's why we've structured our company and do things the way that we do, because we know that assistance is necessary. Not everybody has a network engineer. Not everybody can afford a network engineer. And there's times that we run into it that it's even beyond our scope of what we can do over the phone with a client. Over the phone tech support can really get complicated if you have to dig deep into what they want to do, how they're doing it already, and what we may need to change to make it possible in the future. So we do our best to do our best, and more often than not, it's enough.
I know when I'm listening to you guys talk about doing these different things, and I'll probably lose a few people in our audience on this analogy, but Michael Gray could relate. He works with us, and then Steve can relate too. He's a muscle car guy. We're Jeep guys, Michael and I, and anytime you try to upgrade something on your vehicle, it's not just one little thing. It affects everything else. And so I want to put bigger tires on my Jeep. Well, and then you have to put a lift on it. Well, right. If you put a lift on and you have to have a longer drive shaft. Well, if you have to have a longer drive shaft, and it's just the whole thing. And it just goes on and on. It's the same way with muscle cars. You do some kind of an upgrade and then you got to fix this and do that. It's almost like that with some of the tech stuff with church things. You want to do, networking with your cameras. Well, you got to make sure your network's strong enough and you got to upgrade that. I mean, it's a challenge, right? I mean, we do it. We work with churches all the time, all shapes and sizes, as you guys do too. And yep. Really takes it's really a challenge to do that, but we love doing it. And it seems like you guys do at BZBGear. I want to make sure I get that right. You guys really seem to be customer oriented and really want to do what's best for the customers. You're not trying to sell them just something. You want them to have something that's going to work for them and bring the benefits that they want.
Absolutely. We're a manufacturer. Our job is to sell equipment, but when you take care of people, they take care of you, and that's really a great just philosophy to live by in life. And we are here to help. We want to make sure that the process is easy. We want to make sure that people understand things, and we manufacture in a way that gives people the ability to really do what they want. It's not our position or our job, Phil, to tell people how to use our equipment. And so we want to make it as easy to use, whether you're going as simple as plugging it in through a USB cord, or you want to get super complicated and push 4K 60 over your network. And we want to be able to make sure that you can do anything in between, but we leave that up to our clients. They tell us what they want to do, and then we figure out how to make it happen.
Yeah, good deal. All right. Just another minute or two left. Steve, anything else to toss at Joel or Matthew?
You said 4K 60, you meant 4K and 60 frames per second. And in the church environment, people may go, wow, I want 4K 60. And that works for an F1 race with a lot of movement. But a pastor standing up there, you're just asking for trouble. We just, you tripped one of our things is let's drop that frame rate down to 30 frames because you don't have a lot of movement going on typically.
Right.
So just keep yourself out of trouble. But I heard 4K 60 is the best.
And in some case it is. And you're 100% right, Steve. You know, we hear the buzzwords. We hear the things that people are talking about that catch our ears because it is the latest and greatest. But the latest and greatest isn't always the best. And
or
that's
the right solution. You know, I have a special environment. I'm in church. I'm filming people doing worship and having a church service. It's very different requirements than a football game or
absolutely
a car race or something. So yeah.
And it's important that somebody listens to those needs.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So we've been speaking with Matthew Allison today, also with Joel Cruz. So how can people get a hold of you guys? Maybe they're interested in some of the things you offer. What's a good way for them to reach you?
You can reach us at our website. It's BZBGear.com. We have, like Matthew mentioned earlier, we do have a YouTube channel that we consistently produce content and always uploading stuff with how-tos, demos, you name it. You could go to, that's BZB TV. Just go to YouTube and search that. And then just all our social channels, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at BZBGear. So we are very active on there too. So if you guys have any questions or any suggestions or things that people want to see in their equipment, hit us up on social, and we will love to engage with you guys.
Sounds good. Sounds good. All right. And people can always reach out to us here at streamingchurch.tv. Just go to streamingchurch.tv and you can chat with us. And if we're not around, you can still chat with us and we'll get a message. We'll get the email saying, hey, I have more questions or whatever. And we'll definitely direct those questions to the right people. So, all right. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for spending some time with us today on the Church Solutions podcast.
Thanks for having us on, guys. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yeah. The Capture Conference in Dallas, Texas. And thank you, folks, most of all, for listening or watching to the Church Solutions podcast. Be sure and subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast, and give us a rating if you want. That would be nice. And if we can help you in any way, we are certainly here to do that. And our team is willing to. We've been working with churches for over 20 years, and so whatever we can do to help your church, your ministry, that's what we're here for. So, on behalf of Steve and these gentlemen here, I'm Phil Thompson. Thank you for spending some time here with us on the Church Solutions podcast. We'll catch you again next time. Please take care of yourselves and each other.